You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Hey everyone, Jake here, and welcome to Abandoned episode 47. Today, I want to take you inside a relic that was once hailed as the eighth wonder of the world, the Houston Astrodome. Now, why was this place so special? Picture a dome so massive it could fit over 42 Zero fans, all shielded from the infamous Texas heat. Let's set the scene. Major League Baseball in the 1960s is booming, and Houston's leaders are pushing for a stadium unlike any other fully domed and air-conditioned. Sounds simple, right? But creating what we now call the Astrodome meant rewriting the playbook for stadium architecture. So, what makes a dome more than just a roof? Let's dive into the vision that started it all. Let me tell you a story imagined standing on a flat Texas field in 1962, watching cranes lift steel like toothpicks as engineers Herman Lloyd and W.B. Morgan tackle a challenge nobody solved before: how to span 642 feet with a roof and not a single support column in sight. That's called a self-supporting dome, and it's a marvel of tensile strength and geodesic design. Now, you might be thinking, why all this fuss for a ballpark? Well, the Astrodome had to be hurricane-resistant and climate-controlled, two technical terms: lamella roof, like a woven basket of steel, and HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, both pushed to their limits. By 1965, the result was an 18-story stadium built for spectacle and survival. April 9, 1965. Imagine 47 Zero fans roaring as the Houston Astros face the legendary New York Yankees. President Lyndon B. Johnson sits in the crowd. The lights powered by miles of electrical conduit flicker on, and the world's first domed stadium is officially open. Why did this matter so much? Well, in a country obsessed with tradition, the Astrodome was a leap into the future, ushering in innovations like luxury box suites and 5 in-house restaurants. Ever heard of amenity creep? That's when venues keep one-upping each other with fancier features, and the Astrodome started it all. So, next time you're in a padded seat at a modern arena, thank Houston for setting the standard. Here's a curveball. Real grass just couldn't survive under the dome's filtered light. So, how do you play America's pastime on a dying field? Enter AstroTurf, a synthetic grass that made history. AstroTurf is what we call a polymer-based surface, designed to mimic real grass, but far more resilient. Now, you might ask, did players like it? Not really at first. Sliding burns and odd bounces became common. But AstroTurf's success revolutionized sports, paving the way for every indoor stadium that followed. It's a great example of necessity birthing invention, and it turned the Astrodome into a living laboratory for sports technology. But the Astrodome wasn't just about sports. Let's talk spectacle. Elvis Presley played here, Evel Knievel jumped here, and staff dressed as cadets in space-age suits. That's branding genius, tying the stadium to Houston's role in the space race. Across the street, Astroworld theme park created a tourism mecca. This synergy, what business pros call cross-promotion, drew millions, making the Astrodome the third most visited U.S. attraction at its peak. Have you ever been somewhere that felt bigger than life? For Houstonians, this was that place where sci-fi met Saturday night baseball. By 1989, the world was changing, and so were stadium standards. The Americans with Disabilities Act ADA, if you've seen those blue wheelchair signs, meant the Astrodome needed upgrades. Here's the catch. Renovations are a balancing act between historic preservation and modern compliance. The stadium's capacity jumped to 55,000, and it hosted every sport from MLB to the NBA. But with every facelift, nostalgia battled practicality. Maybe you're thinking, why not just build new? That's the $1 million, let's be honest, $100 million question. Flash to the early 90s, the Astrodome hosts the Republican National Convention, George H.W. Bush accepts the nomination, and Selena's final concert draws 66,000 fans. This was the golden era what urban planners call civic centrality, when a building becomes the beating heart of a city, but popularity breeds expectation. Teams wanted better amenities, fans wanted modernity, and suddenly the dome felt, well, dated. It's a classic life cycle: birth, boom, then the challenge of staying relevant. Let's be real, New stadiums are like shiny new toys. By 2002, the Texans' Reliant Stadium opened next door, boasting retractable roofs and 71 zero seats. That's called architectural obsolescence when a structure is left behind by newer technology. The Astrodome lost its anchor tenants, and even the storied Houston Livestock Show moved out. Ever seen a giant stadium sitting empty? It's eerie. Parking disputes with the new stadium and the closure of Astroworld left the area's tourism ecosystem crumbling. The once bustling dome became a shadow of itself. Then, in 2005, the Astrodome took on a new role: emergency shelter for thousands displaced by Hurricane Katrina. This is what emergency managers call adaptive reuse, finding new life for old spaces in times of crisis. Imagine a sports palace turned into a lifeline, cots lining the field where athletes once played. It was both a humanitarian triumph and a sobering symbol of the dome's decline. But after the evacuees left, the Astrodome went dormant again, its future more uncertain than ever. Let's crunch some numbers. $30 million just to bring the Astrodome up to code, $2 million a year for maintenance, and estimates of $124 to $300 million for any kind of repurposing. That's what economists refer to as sunk costs and public good dilemmas. Taxpayers love the dome, but nobody wants the bill. Even demolition would cost $25 million due to asbestos and its proximity to Reliant Stadium. Now you might be thinking, why not just let it fall? But for many, the Astrodome is a memory bank priceless, even if expensive. Every year, a new plan pops up. Turn it into a convention center, luxury hotel, urban park, or even a skeletal monument. That's called visioning fatigue, when too many ideas stall progress. In 2013, voters rejected a $300 million revamp, and even creative concepts like a park with a mini dome at its center never gained traction. Private investment, public funding, and preservation politics are like a three-way tug of war. Ever feel like a city just can't make up its mind? That's the Astrodome story in a nutshell. In 2017, a breakthrough. The Texas Historical Commission declared the Astrodome a protected landmark. That means you can't demolish it without special approval, a win for preservationists. City planners pitched a $105 million plan to raise the floor and create 9 acres of indoor event space above an underground parking garage. That's called adaptive redevelopment, fusing old bones with new purpose. But as of 2019, even air conditioning budgets tripped up progress. Will the dome ever reopen? If history's taught us anything, it's that this building refuses to be forgotten. Let's zoom out. Why do people fight so hard for a building that's been empty for decades? It's about more than concrete and steel. It's about memories, identity, and the soul of a city. Sociologists call this place attachment, and you can see it in the way Houstonians reminisce about their first game, concert, or family outing under the dome. Maybe, just maybe, the Astrodome's real value isn't in what it can be, but in what it represents: Houston's ambition, resilience, and hope for reinvention. And that, my friends, is a legacy worth preserving.